the craft distilling community is tightly knit under the same goal of taking on the nation's whiskey giants. We ask our distillers how they feel about other craft brands, and they all say the same thing.
You know, rising tide floats all boats.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
A rising tide lifts all ships.
We traveled to the epicenter of American booze lore to learn how a successful and honest craft brand reaches back to lend a hand to new distilleries.
So this is called, to us, anguish and regret.
That sounds like something that I need to drink.
Oh, sun, won't you shine on me? Won't you shine on me when the rain has come?
By now you know the story of Prohibition. In 1920, the United States government sucked the fun out of everything and took booze away. This led to the meteoric rise and subsequent fall of the mob led by legendary gangster Al Capone. Eventually, the government wised up and restored libations to their rightful place. But it wasn't until 2008 that a distillery opened in the second city. And that distillery is Koval.
The name Koval literally means blacksmith, but it gets a little bit more fun when we take a look at Sonnet's lineage. So her grandfather also came also from Vienna, and his family, I don't know if they exactly took issue with it, but they apparently had given him a nickname, Koval. What they were saying to Sonnet's grandfather when he immigrated here to the United States is that he was being a smith. He was forging his own destiny, he was creating something new. Really what they were saying is he was being a black sheep. So that is a big part of our identity, to remain fiercely independent and make things that are really unique to who we are and to create our own tradition. So that's why we do kosher, organic, alternative grain spirits distilled in a brandy style.
Both descendants of Austrian distillers, Robert and Sonnet quickly became powerhouses in the distilling industry. In 2008, they started Koval, their distillery. But they also started Cote Distilling Technologies, a consulting firm that has helped start over 100 craft distilleries. They are also the sole source for Cote German stills in North America, where many distillers purchase their equipment, including some of the ones that we have met. Being this size comes with different problems. They may not have to scramble for barrels or ingredients, but they do have to figure out storage, which is why there are barrels littered across 3 buildings.
A lot of the stuff we do out here is building and maintaining different systems, because as we grow more, we need to add on more and more, make things more and more efficient.
But above everything else, their real goal is to grow the craft distilling world.
I mean, we cared about the entire industry because at the time it was very much a new thing. So we wanted to make sure that all the people that were leaving their careers that didn't have the background that we had, or that Robert had, of 3 generations of distillers in Austria, had the right equipment, had the right knowledge, and the right backup to be incredibly successful and to compete on the same level as some of the big guys. But that makes the whole category very exciting.
To get a better understanding of the ways Koval helps out, we head to the birthplace of the temperance movement, Evanston, Illinois.
So yesterday we went to Koval in Chicago, and now we're going to go to Few Spirits, also in Chicago. Evanston. So yes, they make some pretty tasty whiskey. We had it when we were in Baltimore. What else? We're late. We're as usual. But we're also going there because Koval helps start them. Yeah.
Evanston, Illinois was the home of that temperance movement. And it does add some color to our own story too. And reasonably so, why in Evanston, Illinois, the very first distillery is also tucked down this alleyway off of the main street as we are. So it adds just sort of to this whole experience of the creation of the resurgence of craft spirits in America.
Paul Haletko started Few Spirits in 2011 after a stint as an attorney. Few distills a little different from most brands. After selecting their grains, they create and ferment the mash. Then they put their mash through a 26-foot tall stripping still, the second of its kind. After the stripping run, The booze goes through a finishing still. Then the whiskey is proofed and barreled for a few years before being bottled. There's no substitute for craft whiskey, and there is no faking it. But while most of the craft brands seem like David's facing the Goliath of the industry, it is nice to know that they have a giant of their own, reaching back to provide guidance for the little guy. After all,
We're really proud. We're big believers in the a rising tide raises all ships.
So there's the War Boss cocktail. So we're just gonna fill the glass with ice. 1.5 ounces of the 4 grain, and then about 1/2 ounce of Benedictine. I'm just gonna squeeze a little bit of lemon juice in there just to kind of take the edge off. And then about 1 ounce of orgeat. And then we'll mix it up a little bit. Just garnish it with some mint bitters. A couple drops, 'cause it's pretty strong. There you are, the War Boss cocktail.
What do I do with my hands? Just keep
That's
this?
it. That's what you got.
This?
Stand as close to the camera as possible. Perfect.
You look delicious.